Thinking about moving to Jamaica? Here are 5 things that you should know before you make the move. My name is Michelle Robinson, and I'm an attorney in New York and Jamaica. I practice law in both countries, from the peace and tranquility of Jamaica. I decided to make a move to Jamaica about 3 years ago. I knew that I was going to come here after my father died in 2012 in Jamaica, but I wasn't sure how everything was going to work out, when I was going to get here. But 3 years ago, God put everything into plan, and here I am. I lived here a long time ago when I was a young child. And of course, after moving back to the US, I traveled to Jamaica very often. Just about every summer, winter break, spring break, I was here. And one thing I will tell you is that visiting Jamaica and living here is two different things. Before moving to Jamaica, there are things that you should know. It's a beautiful country, but it does have its problems, and it also has things that you have to kind of learn how to navigate, or at least know about before you get here so that you could plan. The first thing that I'm going to talk about is the banking here. Now, anyone who has had the experience of dealing with a bank in Jamaica knows that, unfortunately, banking system overall in Jamaica is not the most efficient or convenient place to go to. There are some things you're going to encounter, such as really long lines, machines not working. You're going to be encountering days where you make a quick trip to the bank to make a deposit, and then the machine takes your money and you have to go see the teller, and that may take you hours. It can be very frustrating, especially if you don't have cash on you and you often have to go to the bank to access your cash. And this seems like banking across the board. I bank with about 3 different banks, and every single one of them is the same thing. Long lines, machines not working, just taking forever to get something done. I'm still trying to work out the best way to kind of navigate the banking system, but there are some tricks and trades that I've picked up along the way. One of the things that I'll recommend is that if you have a bank in the US, a bank account in the US, do not get rid of it. Do not get rid of your bank account in the US. I would also recommend that you find out what local bank is associated with your bank. For example, I bank with Bank of America in New York. And I discovered that Bank of America and Scotia has some sort of partnership together where there are certain fees I don't have to pay. I think it's the ATM fee. So whenever I go to Scotia and I use my Bank of America card, I don't have to pay the ATM fee. Versus if I go to NCB with my Bank of America card, I will have to pay not only the ATM fee, but the foreign transaction fee as well. The other thing that I have also found is that the bank that I bank with in New York, whenever I need money to access into Jamaica as soon as possible, I just do a very quick wire transfer. I know for sure it's going to get into the account in a couple of hours. The downside to that is that wire transfer fee is about $45. Now, there are other services that could be used. I think Western Union has a where you could transfer from your bank to your local bank in Jamaica. The problem is that it may take a few days or so. I'm not really sure. And I know the other big one is Zoom. I've had clients used it to send me money into my local account. So those are some other resources that you can use. I think there's also Jamaica National. For those of you who live in New York, in Brooklyn specifically, you know that there's like a way for you to transfer money through JN Money, and it could get into your bank account in Jamaica. I highly recommend that before you open up a bank account, do some research. If there's a particular bank that you are interested in banking with in Jamaica, go online, Google them, look at the news about them, and then also talk to people in the community in Jamaica and go to the banks directly, see what it's like there before you choose a bank. That would be my biggest recommendation. And the other thing too is that opening up an account in Jamaica is like trying to get a mortgage. It's a lot. So I would also recommend that before you decide what bank you want to bank with, you go to the bank, find out what is required in order to open up a bank account. Another big topic that you should know about before coming to Jamaica is safety and security. Now, if you're watching the news, sometimes the news could portray Jamaica to be a little bit more dangerous than it actually is. For me, of course, crime exists in Jamaica, but mostly it's in pockets of communities. The violence that you may read about on the news is really in certain pockets of communities in Kingston and in other parts of Jamaica. It's not widespread. You can walk up and down wherever you want to go to. Of course, when you are walking in the streets, you do not want to be flashy. You do not want to have jewelry on. You don't want to have your bag out and open. You want to protect yourself. But this is the same for anywhere you go to. I remember when I went to France when I was young, one of the students that were with my group, they got robbed. And they got robbed because they were not paying attention to what was happening to them. This is something that can happen anywhere you go to. You just have to exercise precaution whenever you are traveling, especially if you're going somewhere that you're not familiar with. The other thing that I will also advise you is never go somewhere that you are not familiar with. If you are not familiar with a certain area and someone is not with you that's familiar with that area, don't go there, especially lanes that you're not familiar with. Just try your best to avoid those areas. It's quite possible that nothing will happen to you if you find yourself in those lanes, but because you just don't know those areas, and whether I'm in Brooklyn or I'm in Jamaica, I'm not going into any lanes or alleys that I'm not familiar with. So I would exercise that precaution regardless of where I am. In terms of housing and security, there are a lot of gated communities in Jamaica that have 24-hour security. And if that is something that's very important to you, there are a lot of communities that you could look into. I am going to have another video where I talk about real estate in Jamaica, where I'm going to touch on gated communities and security. So stay tuned for that video. Overall, I will say do not let these stories about crime in Jamaica stop you from coming and exploring. I've had friends who moved away from Jamaica years ago and never came back because they had this impression that Jamaica was this really violent place and unsafe. And recently one of my friends came, and of course it was nothing like what she thought it was. And I'm not talking about going to Montego Bay, I'm just talking about like coming into Kingston. If you're watching the news and that's all you're watching, you are going to think that things are really bad here. Yes, the crime is a problem, but it's not widespread, and I feel safe here, and I know a lot of people feel the same way as well. Now, let's talk about cost of living. Before I go into any in-depth conversation about cost of living in Jamaica, I need you to understand that cost of living and the affordability here, I feel, is relative to your earning power and where you're getting your money from. So for example, I find Jamaica to be much more affordable, especially when it comes to housing. But that's relative to the fact that I lived in New York, Brooklyn specifically, where housing I probably couldn't get anything that was really good cheaper than $700,000. The real estate market in New York is crazy. New York City, to be specific. While in Jamaica, I could find a nice apartment in a gated community, a 2-bedroom, with pool, security, gym, all these amenities for about $200,000, probably less, if I really wanted to find something less than $200,000. But for the people who live here, who are earning the Jamaican dollars, and they may not be in a job that pays them well, that may be too expensive. With the minimum wage that people are being paid in Jamaica, I sometimes find it hard to see how they can buy into certain communities. So that is why I'm saying that the affordability of Jamaica is extremely relative to where you are coming from and what your experience is from the place that you originally came from. For me, it's not as expensive. With that being said, there are things in Jamaica that I think are a lot more expensive in the US, and that's especially items that I would usually like to get in the US. Getting them here can be very expensive, and that is because of the custom fees and GCT and shipping. By the time items reach to Jamaica, they're probably like triple the price. But you have to know where to go to shop. If you're going to Uptown Kingston, you're going to be paying Uptown Kingston prices. Things are going to be much more expensive there. If you're going downtown, you're going to be paying much cheaper and affordable prices. I've also found that places like Price Mart can be a little bit more affordable. Certain supermarkets are more affordable than others. But overall, if you buy mouthwash in New York for $10, let's say it's a US brand mouthwash, you're not paying $10 in Jamaica for it. Of course, because of the taxes and all of that and the shipping, it's going to be a lot more expensive. However, I do think that there are some people who just take advantage of the fact that they have items that they get from abroad, and when they sell it in store, it could be very expensive. And the reason why I feel that is because there's just no reason why, and I'm talking about big stores too. I'm not going to name the place specifically, but I went into a place where I saw the item for one price and went into another store and saw it for a significant less price, and it was just absolutely ridiculous. Gas prices, I think, are very high here. The light bill, I have no idea what is going on with JPS, but the light bill is a different beast. It is extremely expensive here. Eating out. Now, that may be relative also from where you're coming from. For me, living in New York and eating out in New York, a dinner for two at a restaurant in Brooklyn could run us close to 170 to 200 US dollars, which in Jamaican dollars, that's roughly between, I don't know, $20,000 and $30,000. Now, here, I can go to a really nice restaurant for two people and leave there and spend $10,000, $13,000, $15,000. That is about $70 to $100. That is significantly less than what I would pay in the US. So for me, eating out is relatively cheaper. Overall, one of the reasons why I decided to move to Jamaica was because I wanted to have a little bit more of an affordable lifestyle. In the US, things in New York. Let's talk about Brooklyn, New York. In Brooklyn, New York, things are just absolutely expensive. Like from the moment I land there, is like money just falling out of my pocket. While in Jamaica, like I could go probably 2-3 days without spending any money, just making sure that I have gas in my car, drive back and forth to my office. I cook from home. I'm good to go. That's not the case in Brooklyn. I have to worry about parking, paying for parking, getting tickets, because that has to just be part of it, because it is very easy to get a ticket in Brooklyn. I'll just end this by saying that, again, for me, it is relatively cheaper than living in Brooklyn. However, there are aspects of living in Jamaica that are pricier. And keep in mind that for people who are local, who may not be making much money, and there are a lot of people in Jamaica who are earning a really good income, but for those who don't earn a good income, Jamaica is not as affordable as I think it could be. Now, driving. I drive in both New York as well as in Jamaica. I know people are always saying in New York, like, if you could drive in New York City, you could drive anywhere else. If you could drive in Jamaica, you could drive anywhere else. The driving here, you have to worry about dogs, cats, other bad drivers, people in the street, bicycles in the street, and you also have to worry about taxis. The taxis are a different beast, but the potholes, I know mechanics are doing well here. You can't tell me that mechanics in Jamaica are not doing well, because these potholes are leading you directly to a mechanic. Front ends, mechanics, that's probably what they do most than anything. Something is wrong with their front end or tires. In New York, I've had my vehicle in New York for about 6 years. I've never changed a tire. Since I've been in Jamaica, I have changed all 4 tires twice, and I've had that car for 2 years. And the tires need to change again. That is just to show you how bad the streets are. So when it comes to driving, you could do it, but if you don't want to do it, I absolutely understand, because the driving here is absolutely insane. The potholes are of another world, and it's not every street. So a lot of streets in Jamaica are really good, but there are a lot of streets that are really bad. And those bad streets are the ones that would lead you directly into your bank account. Other than that, I will say that if you are going to drive here, just keep that in mind, that you have to practice extra precaution, and please be safe. Lastly, customer service. The bad customer service is not everywhere, but it is in so many places that it is often the topic of discussion for many people. I think we could do better with the customer service, and it doesn't matter where you go. A restaurant, supermarket, a government building, even some resorts, banking. You often feel as if you are begging for services, like you're begging to spend your money with them. The customer service here is really, really bad. But like I said, it's not everywhere. So what I do, I don't get into arguments with people. When I experience bad customer service, I avoid going back to that place, because I'm not arguing with people. And a lot of time they may be having a bad day or they're unhappy, but I'm just a customer, and all I'm trying to do is get my groceries and that's it. I didn't do nothing to you. So you're going to probably feel feel that wrath. I will tell you to exercise patience. Don't get into any confrontations with anyone. Just know that there is an issue with customer service and you're going to have to exercise a lot of patience, and that's about that. Overall, there are just so many beautiful things about Jamaica, and I am going to do a separate video that just talks about some of the things that I absolutely love. But I just want you guys to know that if you are planning to come to Jamaica, you just have to keep in mind that things may not be the same as how it is in the US. So whatever you have in your mind about how things are supposed to work, when you come to a new country, and it doesn't matter what country you go to, you have to understand that the culture is going to change and you have to be prepared. I often see people go through this culture shock when they come to a new country, and it doesn't matter where I go. Even when I went to Australia, there were some people like in my group that were like shocked. So I'm like, you're in another country, you just have to deal with it. Just keep that in mind. When you move to another country, you're probably going to experience things a lot differently than you anticipated, and you have to be prepared for that. I will say that despite all of the things that are not the best in Jamaica, I would make the decision to move here again and again and again. So stay tuned for the rest of my videos. I am so excited to be sharing all the things that is amazing and beautiful, and things that also need to be worked on in Jamaica. Until next time.